A 9-year-old girl zips her backpack in the dark, the sound cutting through a sleeping house in Cleveland County, North Carolina. It is February 14, 2000, Valentine's Day, and Asha Degree is doing something no one in her family expects. She is not running from a fire or a storm. She is not crying out for help. She walks out the front door into the cold February air, and she does not come back. The door closes behind her, and for the next 26 years, the question of why she left will haunt everyone who touches this case. Most people think a missing child case stays in one category: a runaway, a family abduction, a stranger in a car. Asha Degree's case didn't stay in any of them. Here is what nobody understood at the time. The girl who packed her own backpack, who chose to leave in the middle of the night, would eventually force investigators to use a word that changes everything: homicide. The question isn't just why she left, it's who was waiting. By the time the sun rose on February 14, 2000, Asha was gone, and the search that followed would cover more ground than anyone imagined. What the public saw was a massive operation. Hundreds of volunteers, bloodhounds, helicopters sweeping the woods around Shelby, North Carolina. What the public didn't see was the detail that would not fit the runaway theory. Asha left with her book bag. Not a packed suitcase, not a note. Just a school backpack and the clothes she was wearing. She walked south on Highway 18, a major road that cuts through the Carolina countryside, in the middle of a violent rainstorm. Truck drivers saw her. A motorist pulled over and offered her a ride around 4 in the morning. She refused. She kept walking. If you have ever packed a bag for a 9-year-old, you know how loud a zipper feels in a quiet house. You know the weight of it, the ordinary weight of a child's things. That backpack was the last normal object connected to Asha Degree, and for 18 months it was also the last trace of her. The investigators treated this as a disappearance first, a runaway case with concerning details. They searched the highways, the ditches, the abandoned buildings along her route. They found nothing. No sign of the girl, no sign of struggle, no indication of where she was heading. But on August 3, 2001, a shocking discovery changed the geometry of the case. 18 months is a long time for a child's backpack to stay hidden, long enough to break the runaway theory wide open. If the August 2001 discovery already has you questioning the original search, stay on this case, because what was found next only deepens the contradiction. In the comments, type "The file stays open" if you already suspected the backpack was placed, not lost. A man digging near a building in Burke County found Asha's backpack, double-wrapped in black garbage bags. It was buried, hidden. Not dropped, not discarded, concealed. She had been walking south. The backpack was found in a direction she was never seen heading. That geographic mismatch was the first crack in the official narrative. And when investigators opened the bag, they found something that made the runaway story even harder to believe. Asha's personal items were inside. A new Kids on the Block t-shirt, a library book, the small things a child carries. But the bag had been carefully wrapped in black plastic, then buried where no one would find it. No 9-year-old runs away and buries her own backpack. Pause here. Because what happened next wasn't part of any public plan. For years, the backpack sat in an evidence locker, holding DNA that no one matched. The case went cold. Not closed, but quiet. The Degree family kept hoping. The detectives kept a file. The public remembered Asha as the girl who walked into the rain and never came back. But inside that evidence bag, a forensic story was waiting to be told. The kind of story that forensic DNA interpretation exists to uncover. The kind where a single item of evidence can link a person to a recovered trace. And when the science finally caught up, it would name two people. The first name was Russell Bradley Underhill. The second was Anna Lee Victoria Dedman Ramirez. One of them was a grown man. The other was a 13-year-old girl when Asha Degree disappeared. Think about that. 13, still a child, still old enough to be named in a warrant 25 years later. The case that everyone called a runaway had just become something else entirely. By September 2024, investigators were no longer using the word disappearance. They said the word homicide, out loud, in public. The Cleveland County Sheriff's Office and investigators confirmed that Asha's case had been opened as a homicide investigation. Search warrants revealed the belief that Asha was a victim of homicide, her body concealed. Concealed. That word implies intent. It implies someone who wanted Asha never to be found. The backpack, wrapped in black bags and buried, was not an accident. It was an attempt to erase. And now, the DNA from two items inside it pointed to a man who was already dead and a woman who was once a child. Russell Bradley Underhill was found dead in Lincoln County in 2004, 4 years after Asha vanished. He never faced a public accusation. He never gave an interview, but the forensic evidence tied to his name remained. Anna Lee Dedman Ramirez, however, was alive, and in April 2025, the FBI and the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation joined new searches at different locations. They searched abandoned buildings. They coordinated with federal agents. Here is the part most people miss. No remains have been recovered, and no one has been arrested. Anna Lee Dedman Ramirez is alive, and no one has been arrested. Stay on this case as the next set of warrants narrows around the living, not just the dead. In the comments, write "The file stays open." If you think the answer is someone who has not been questioned publicly yet, stay on this case. The search warrants are public. The DNA linkage is public. The names are public. The answer is still missing. Somewhere between the front door and the highway, there is an hour that no warrant has explained. Asha was seen walking. She was offered a ride. She was seen again by another driver, and then the trail stops. But the physical trace was never lost. That is the title's truth. The backpack found on August 3, 2001, in Burke County. The bag, wrapped in black garbage bags, was the piece that refused to disappear. It sat in evidence for more than 2 decades, carrying the DNA that would eventually rewrite the case. By early 2025, the public narrative had completely inverted. No longer a heartbreaking runaway story, but a homicide investigation with named persons of interest. The Dedman family properties were searched in September 2024. The searches continued into 2025. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Reports were filed. The word homicide hung in the air of every inquiry. And still, the search warrants whisper a phrase that investigators repeat like a mantra. Her body has been concealed. Concealment. That is the word that separates a disappearance from a crime. Asha packed her own backpack. She left on her own, but she did not bury that bag herself. Somebody wrapped it in black plastic. Somebody dug a hole. Somebody made sure the trail would be cold. What the evidence says now is that the trail was never fully cold. Russell Bradley Underhill and Anna Lee Victoria Dedman Ramirez are the 2 names on the DNA evidence. One died before the science could catch him. The other was a child when Asha vanished. Research in forensic psychology has documented how a child's compliance and fear responses can shape behavior during a coercive encounter. It is a quiet, uncomfortable truth. The person who helped conceal this crime may have been barely older than Asha herself. The investigation is active. The FBI and SBI are still searching, but the official position, repeated in 2025, is exact. At this time, no remains have been recovered and no arrests have been made. That sentence is the entire weight of this case in one breath. They have the backpack, they have the DNA, they have the names, they do not have Asha. And they do not have the answer to a question that will not close. The missing hour. The hour between the door closing and the last sighting on Highway 18. In that hour, the story changed. In that hour, Asha went from a girl walking in the rain to a girl who was never seen again. The backpack carries the trace studies on missing children say matters most. Most missing child incidents involving young people are runaways. But Asha's case stopped being a runaway the moment the black garbage bags were unrolled. That detail, that concealment, is the heart of the evidence file. The father who saw her leave, the mother who reported her missing, the drivers who saw a small figure in the storm, they are the living witnesses to a timeline that ends too soon. And the two names on the DNA report are the silent witnesses at the other end of it. Russell Bradley Underhill never answered for what the evidence suggests. Annalee Victoria Deadman Ramirez has yet to face a public charge. But the search warrants are methodical, and the investigators are patient. The case, as of 2026, remains open. Asha's remains have never been recovered, but the remains of that night, the backpack, the DNA, the black plastic, were never lost. That is what the title means. Not a body found, a trail preserved. And as the FBI continues to coordinate with the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, the trail is still being followed. Somewhere, in an evidence locker, the backpack still holds its secrets. The library book, the New Kids on the Block t-shirt, the fibers and the traces that linked two people to a child's last known possessions. The zipper is still. The bag is sealed. The file is open. That evidence locker is not a dead end. It is a pause in a file that has never been closed. Stay on this case as the next layer is worked, because the trail outlasts the news cycle. In the comments, write "The file stays open" if you think the DNA names are still the strongest lead. If the black plastic felt like a confession to you, leave that word as well. Every signal keeps the case breathing. The missing hour has not been explained. That hour is still waiting, and so is the answer to who used it. The rain that night did more than soak the highways and blur the headlights of passing trucks. It washed away footprints, tire marks, anything that might have told investigators which way Asha went after the last witness looked away. But rain cannot wash away DNA. It cannot unpick a zipper or unwrap a black garbage bag. 26 years after a 9-year-old packed her backpack on Valentine's Day, the case stands at a strange crossroads. The evidence is stronger than it has ever been. The public knows the names. The warrants are signed and sealed. And still, the central question remains unanswered, sitting in that evidence locker beside the backpack, waiting for someone to open the file and finish the story. The investigators have not given up. The family has not given up, and the evidence has not faded. Asha Degree walked into the rain on February 14, 2000, carrying everything she thought she needed. The truth of what happened in the missing hour has never been buried quite as deeply as someone hoped. One day, the answer will come. The backpack is still there. The trace is still there. And the hour is still waiting to be told. That sealed bag holds more than fabric and paper. It holds the sum of what one family has waited 26 years to learn, measured not in answers but in the weight of a child's belongings that never made it home. The searches in 2025 were not the end of the road. They were the latest turn in a road that has been through 2 decades of silence, cadaver dogs, and sealed warrants still waiting for a judge's signature to loosen their grip. For the Degree family, every February 14th arrives with the same hollow arithmetic. Another year since the door closed. Another year of not knowing. Another year of hoping that the black garbage bags are one day opened on a courtroom table not an evidence shelf. But the file is not finished, the DNA report is not finished, and the investigators have made it clear, in public, that this case is not finished. The backpack that a 9-year-old zipped in the dark was recovered, wrapped, and preserved. It was never lost, and it has never stopped speaking. What it will say next, no warrant has yet revealed. But the zipper is still there. The trace is still there. And the missing hour, that stretch of dark road between the front door and the last pair of headlights, is still waiting to give up its final witness.